Good morning, everyone. It's 9 o'clock. Welcome to Bowling Green, our 21st annual HCEA Equipment Exposition. We're going to have a great day today. Weather will be perfect. Don't forget about our food booth on the north side of the tent. We have a great breakfast available for you. So head on over for Chef Dar. He'll cook you up sausage, gravy, biscuits, pancakes, eggs, potatoes. It's a great breakfast, so head on over and fill your tummy and start your day off well. Let's honor America by playing the national anthem. Thank you. So enjoy your day, have a safe day, and have a great time.
Well, my name's Mike Androvich. I got involved about 5 years ago. They were restoring a TA40 McCormick Deering track tractor, and we're having some issues finding parts. So I helped them find some parts for the TA40 and just kept working on that with them over about a period of a year, year and a half, and then started getting involved in other projects. They had donated this Austin grader, and that was exciting to me because being an IH collector, I got really intrigued by this Austin because it's powered by a McCormick Deering Model 20 industrial engine. It's about 1927. It was in pretty tough shape when it was donated to the museum. It had been sitting outside for a long, long time, very rusted. The engine was still loose, so that's a big plus. And we did get it running in its original condition. It didn't run very good at all. It ran very badly, so we pretty much knew it was going to have to be completely torn apart. So the tractor actually can come completely out of the frame. The tractor sits inside the frame of the machine, so we basically disassembled the part, the important part, which is the engine part, right out of the frame. The cab in the back was completely shot. It had originally had a winter cab, which was a totally enclosed sheet metal cab around the operator. It was about a half there. The operation of this machine is somewhat of a challenge. There's all kinds of levers, wheels that you have to constantly monitor. You try to keep the machine running straight. That's the first challenge. Second challenge is to try to keep the blade somewhat level. The gravity takes over at times and it starts to dip one side of the blade or the other, so you constantly have to adjust the blade. So that's the challenge. And the engine's still a little bit tight, so it wants to cough and sputter now and then, so you have to hit the choke now and then. So really, you're constantly on the controls. You're jumping, you're jiving around, trying to keep the thing running. But the longer it runs, the better it's been running. These are the controls for the machine right here in front of the operator. Main wheel in the middle is to steer the unit itself. Heavy cast iron wheel, clear out to the front, steers the wheels out front. These two large levers, large pulleys here, control the angle of the blade. Wheel on the left controls the up and down on the left of the blade. Wheel on the right controls the up and down on the right. These are probably used the most when you're grading. This wheel up at your upper left controls the scarifier up and down. This lower wheel controls the rotation of the blade. It's locked by a foot pedal. Push the foot pedal, you can rotate the angle of the blade, and that's locked in place when you release the foot lever because there's a lot of force on the blade. Last lever over here on the right controls the blade assembly, moving it in and out to the left and right. Generally, I leave that in the middle position. Haven't messed with that. The tractor controls are the simplest of all the controls. You have a gear shift with a foot clutch. You have 3 speeds, forward, 1 speed reverse. You have a speed control for the engine, and you have a spark control for the magneto. You're protected only by the roof. At least you're out of the sun. You have a little bit of bounce on the platform. It's mounted on leaf springs, so you get a lot of dust coming through the bottom of the platform. But that's state-of-the-art technology in 1927. A lot better than walking behind a team of mules with a pull-type scraper.
About 3 weeks ago, they called and wanted to know if we'd be interested in bringing some mules down here, and we did. And we've had a really good time since we've been here. We pulled the grader and Fresnel scraper and a water wagon and just played. Had a lot of fun. Seen a lot of nice machinery. One of the things we pulled was the Fresnel scraper, and it's work. You know, anybody that run them, they worked for a living. They didn't, you know, it's just unbelievable how much actual manpower it took just to run one of them. It's you tip it forward, but if you tip it too much, it'll catch, and you know, if you don't tip it enough, it won't scrape the dirt. You know, you've got to get it just right, and then you've got to when you get to the end, you got to tip it back the other way to make sure that it comes up out of the ground. You know, there's no, you know, hydraulics or cables or anything to it. It's just all manpower. That's all there is, you know. Well, I've really enjoyed seeing, you know, the old machinery. I've always liked it anyway, so you know, it's been fun just come down and I wished I had more time to watch more of it run. It's a weekend isn't enough.
Next. Cable wall. Ready to roll around it? 1848. State dump truck. 1962.
This is my first show that I've been to. Been kind of excited all summer to come down to here. It's been a very nice show. My name is Marv Tolan. I'm from Caledonia, Michigan. I brought down 5 pieces of machinery. Let's see. One is a J.D. Adams Model 10 road grader. Happens to have a 16-foot blade on it, which is very uncommon. I also brought a J.D. Adams pull type grader, Model 31. It's a leaning wheel grader also.
brought a Western wheeled scraper, which is kind of an old antique piece that runs by hand, and also brought an operator with me to to run that.
I guess they brought me down here to do all the hard work. My name's Jamie Gooder, and I came down here with Marv Tolan, and I'm from Dorr, Michigan. I mainly ran the wheel scraper, and then the hardest part was loading it. You gotta be on your toes, otherwise you lose it. But then you gotta keep it digging a little bit to load it. Keep it angled. You gotta angle it, and then push down on it once you get it full. If you get it too full, then you really gotta pull on it. You stand on it and pull. You gotta not try to dig in too hard, and then pull it up. And then the best part was dumping it.
Oh, a lot of nice dirt to work in, and a lot of guys, courteous guys out there. It gets a little crowded at times, but everybody seems to watch out for the other guy out there, and it's very interesting working the machinery out there. Throttle's on.
I got a Cat 60. It's a 1928. The city of Fond du Lac, Wisconsin bought it brand new. It was a snowplow special. They had a 12-foot snowplow on it with wings and everything on it to plow snow, and then they graded roads in the springtime and summer with it. We bought it off a guy that had bought it and said that he ran it, which I don't think he ever did because it took us a while to get it going. And basically all we do is use it for fun. It's like I said, a 60. We plow with it. Anything we can hook onto and pull, we do. Northeast Indiana Steam and Gas Association out of LaGrange, Indiana. That's the main show I go to. Take steam engines there. I've got 3. I got an 80 case, a 50 case, an 18 horse Advance, and then I've got some Rumley oil pulled tractors. But we like steam. It's fun, good to play with, thrashing and plowing, the same as the Cat. We don't go anywhere we can't plow or use the thing. If we can't put it in the drawbar and use it, we don't go. We're not there for any reason but to have fun and use the thing. And that's why it's not all painted up. I've got painted up stuff at home, but this thing is to use. It's to go out and we grease her and take care of her, change oil in her, put fuel in it, and use it. I don't want it to be pretty, because if it's pretty, then I can't do what I want to do with it. Oh, we've had a good time and so on, pulled a lot, but I've missed some steam. We've seen the advertisements with the engines and stuff on, and we really miss that because I have steam engines. I like steam engines, and it's still one heck of the best power around. Steam power started everything, and we probably could have brought one of them, but oh well.
My name is Gail Moore from Worthington, Minnesota, and I brought to the show a U.S. track. The forerunner of that is Clark Airborne, what they threw out of the airplane. This is exactly the same thing, only it's got a Continental engine in it. The Scraper is one that they threw out of the airplane too. The glider during the Second War, they put it behind, usually behind enemy lines to fix the runways when they were bombed. They made the Beetle in the 30s for the Forest Service, and they casted the stuff in Ohio here, Marysville or Madisonville, Ohio, and then they machined it in Washington. Well, when the war came on, the government says, we got to have somebody build something. So they took that guy and another guy and went to Detroit. They built the Clark Airborne. Well, they had that a few years. They made a lot of them. And then supposedly they had a fire in the plant. And then into the war, the government always had more places building them. And they built this one in Warren, Ohio, Federal Machine. It's identically the same as that, only they used a different motor. And this one was used, they farmed with this one in Canada. I got it north by Winnipeg. And I did a lot of work. It was been through a salvage. It was in tough shape. I built all new undercarriage, all new rollers. This scraper I found at Medelia, Minnesota. It was in a weed patch, junk. It was tore up pretty bad. And I bought it from a guy. I finally got the bought. He wanted a lot of money and I didn't give him that much. And had it for a couple years before I got it rebuilt. My boy likes to paint everything orange, so it got painted orange. But it is one, it was made in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. They put it in with a glider or parachuted it in plane, usually behind enemy lines, fix the runways and stuff. There was a lot of them in Europe. They shipped a lot of them into the islands. This is the 9th show I've been to this year. I started out in Florida. I was 2 months Florida Flywheelers in Florida, helped them put buildings after the hurricane. And then we had a little show, the REA had a little show right there home. And then a few weeks later, we had one at the 4th of July, the local show. Then I went to Granite, which is in northwest Iowa, right in the corner. And we went to Albert City, Iowa, that's a big show. Then we went to Butterfield. Then we went to Marion, South Dakota, the show. Then 2 weeks ago, we went to Rolog. That is a big show up there. Wife thought it was a little funny when we come here, there's only about 6 pieces of equipment sitting out there. We was here a few days there, and now the show, a lot of stuff has showed up, been a nice show. Nice weather. Well, I've never really run it much in the dirt before, accidentally, because the wife said it was too good to get dirty. Yeah, the last day I decided to come out here and get it out and run in the dirt a little bit. Everybody got away so nobody run over me. And we tried her out. And from now on, we'll be run more in the shows and stuff.
150, 150, 150 out of 150, 150, 150, 150 out of this, 150 out of the 150, 150, 150, anyone else give $150? $150? Sold at $140. Open.
I'm George Goldsberry from Columbus Grove, Ohio. I kind of collect Laterna Westinghouse equipment, and I have a C dozer at home. It's restored, and I have a D Turnipole restored, and a little airborne. I have it here to show, but I had been looking for a Model D rear engine Turnadozer for several years, and I finally run across this D model with a front engine. I think apparently a prototype that had been sent maybe to the military. all indications are, when I started to restore it, was it did have military markings on it.
I'm Roy Letourneau. I'm the son of R.G. Letourneau, and I started out in the factory welding, machining, operating equipment, and in fact, at one of my high school vacations, I built the first prototype for the C Turnidozer that we built. I tell people he didn't put us to work too early in life. He waited till we were about 10 to put us to work in the factory. But Dad started out in California in the early days, land leveling, and then moved from that into dirt moving. And because there wasn't much to move dirt with, he began to build machines. And before long, people were wanting his machines, and he would always sell them the old one because he had already figured out how to make a better one, and he wanted that for his own job. So Dad was always, wherever he saw a need, he was designing machinery for that need. And after we sold the earth moving part of the business, he developed the electric drive and the log stackers for handling truckloads of logs, and the offshore drilling platforms for drilling oil out in the ocean. One of the smaller projects he did was the airborne turn-a-pull scraper. I'm not sure how that came about, that he ever got involved in something that small, but in World War II they needed something they could fly in, so he developed the little D4 airborne turn-a-pull and scraper.
These were produced for the Army, the airborne engineers for World War II. They wanted a small scraper that could be transported by air. The majority of them were built for the military, but there were some civilian units built. My name is Dale Hardy. I'm from Longview, Texas. I work for Letourneau Incorporated. Today they're in Longview. I'm also I'm on the board of directors of the R.G. Letourneau Heritage Center there in Longview, Texas. The airborne engineers had the responsibility of going in behind the lines. The gliders would land in the open field. They would land with the Clark dozer, the LaPlante Schultz scraper, the Case tractor, and an Adams grader. The gliders could land in a field, and with that small equipment, they would start an airstrip, and they would get it long enough that a C-47 could land. Then after that, they could bring in larger equipment. They could bring the Letourneau D4 Airborne. They would even break down other pieces of equipment into smaller pieces and bring them in the C-47. Once they did that, they could make their airstrips longer and longer until they could get larger planes in. Therefore, they could build airstrips behind enemy lines in that way. There has been a misconception that this airborne equipment was airdropped or parachuted into the battlefield or an airstrip or somewhere. That is incorrect. They were never parachuted or airdropped from a plane. One primary proof of that is there wasn't an aircraft capable of doing that at that time. That came later. But they're airborne because they were designed to go in a C-47 or a glider. They were tested in flight in the Waco CG-4A and the CG-13. Those were actual test flights made, but they never, as far as I know, one was never actually delivered by a glider to a battlefield or anywhere else, but they were transported in a C-47.
They tell me that in World War II, we supplied about 75% of all the earth-moving machinery used by the Allied forces. So we were quite active. Anybody that was in the Corps of Engineers or the Seabees is well aware of Letourneau equipment.
Got a John Deere 420 Crawler tractor, 1956. It on now. Well, we got a three-way dump truck. One of us right now is a 1932 three-way dump truck. Differential. Differential amount they make for the truck. Wow. 6131. By Tom Lord. That's a capacity on that is 12 tons. W, followed by S, 6. Wayne Park. Papers in 1943. Scraper, Model Ds. Both of those are 1929, and they are owned by the association. F-Track, Blueprint, Model 14, 1928, owned by Eldon Ford. Adam motor grader. Again, if you'd like to get your approval and praise,
do not have to register. Just get in line, and you'll find near the line out, it's quite long. We've got a lot of great
Look at this. My name is Claude Rodrigue, and this is my father, Marc André. We're from Quebec. We're French Canadians from Quebec, Canada. Actually, we're north of Montreal. Where I come from, there aren't many people collecting antique pieces of equipment, and some people think we're a little bit crazy. And one of the reasons why we're here today is I wanted to show my father that I'm not the only one. And I think we're having a good time at that. But I also, one of the reasons we're here is that I wanted my father to have a good look at what other guys like me are experiencing collecting antique pieces of equipment and having fun once a year in our sand pit. He thinks I brought him to please him, but I must say that I'm making myself a gift on this weekend to have him with me having fun driving the machines. Actually, he drove the Coring 305 this morning for about an hour, and we had a ball there. Just made our day, and we're very happy. We've met a lot of good people here, and a lot of friends, a lot of nice people who are willing to help us collecting equipment. And they were very nice with my father, although he doesn't speak English. Papa, j'aimerais ça que tu parles de ton expérience ce matin quand tu as conduit la pelle en français. Là, tu peux nous dire ça en français.
Ah bien, j'ai bien aimé faire cette expérience à conduire une pelle différente de celle que j'avais déjà conduite. L'opération était assez facile, mais ce que j'ai eu la difficulté, c'est avec le swing. Alors, le swing était à l'envers de celle que j'avais l'habitude de faire. Mais en fait, de plaisir que j'ai eu dessus, là, c'est difficile à exprimer parce que j'ai bien aimé ça.
OK. Peux-tu leur dire combien de temps tu as travaillé là-dessus, puis ça fait combien de temps que tu n'avais pas conduit une clame, tu as oublié la unit?
Avant de travailler pour une commission scolaire et devenir soit professeur et directeur d'une polyvalente, j'avais travaillé pour un contracteur pendant 18 ans. Alors, je faisais différentes opérations sur différentes machines, et les pelles, les tracteurs, les gradeurs, et je faisais aussi un travail de mécanicien. Alors,
Comment tu vas travailler là-dessus?
Ça fait... depuis que la dernière fois que j'ai travaillé dessus, ça fait au moins... Ça faisait 40 ans que je n'avais pas touché à une machine. Alors, c'était un peu un matin, là, il fallait y penser sérieusement, là, comment se servir des différentes bras et des pédales.
Qu'est-ce que tu penses de tout le show ici, puis de tous ces gars-là qui collectent des équipements, là, des gars de mon âge, d'autres âges qui collectent des équipements?
Ce que je pense d'eux, c'est de valeur que je ne fais pas alentour pour travailler avec eux autres. J'aimerais bien ça, c'est fun. Ça me donne le goût de retourner un peu dans la mécanique, dans la vieille machinerie.
He says he's very happy to be here because it gives him the taste. He says he'd like to be younger, to come here more often and help the guys out fixing the machines since he's a mechanic himself, and that it gives him the will to come and help me refurbish my own machines. And when I was a kid, 4 years old, he kept bringing me with him on the machines, and he taught me how to do it. He taught me all the ins and outs of it. And today it's just for me a way of paying back the good stuff that he's brought to me through the years.
Caterpillar 22 color tractor.
Well, I'm Lynn Burdick. I'm from Endicott, New York. I brought a Bay City Model 20 front shovel down here. We found it down in the gravel pit up above Binghamton, New York. And the motor was seized up when we got to it, and it was in pretty, well, not bad shape, but not good either. And we worked on the motor, pulled the cylinder head, and got exhaust valves freed, and got the motor started up and walked the thing up out of the pit on it all by itself. Had a low boy there and walked it up onto the low boy, and it took us probably 4 or 5 weeks of working on and off on it to get it running and get it up out of the pit. Got it back to my friend's garage. Had to do a lot of cosmetic work to it. Interior, the gears and such inside were good. I was very lucky to get a good machine like that. We had to pull the tracks and the undercarriage out from underneath it to do some metal and repair work on the frame and such. Put some more paint onto it and put it back together. Went over the house and repainted all that. And it took us all about 1 year to do that. It was very steady work on it. It was a bigger job than what I really anticipated when we started it, to put it in a 1 year time frame, but it worked out great. I mean, we made our goal. Here we are, having a great time. Just couldn't be happier. Just wonderful. And the trip down here, we brought down on my friend Steve's 76 Ford Louisville 900.
I'm a member of the Antique Truck Club, so it only seemed natural that we got our antique trucks to haul our antique equipment. So we put in quite a bit of work into each of them. The trailer, getting it ready, I put brake parts on it and went through the truck and serviced it and got ready for that. And we really had an uneventful trip out.
And we got here and got unloaded with it and started meeting members of the Pony chapter that got me signed in down there, which was nice because I've read about them in the magazine and everything, and got us all signed up and walked the machine up there and started in working it. I talked to one of the members here and he brought some dirt over to me, so I had something to work with, and I haven't loaded any trucks yet with it, but it's a real thrill. We've worked it actually more today than we ever have. We took it to one other tractor show a few weeks ago just as display, and this is the first working time, and like I said, haven't really been on it all that much. But it's just working great. It's running real good.
We met a couple gentlemen here and we joined the Northeast Rock Busters, and we're always looking forward to 2007 show because it's close to us, and we have a few pieces of equipment that we want to get taken care of and bring out, and we're really looking forward to it. This show was great. We had good times. Our first time, involved with this type of equipment, and it really, we've had a good time at it. We're looking forward to it.
This shovel, 1926 Marion Model 21 electric shovel, was first owned by the Swint Company in Fremont, Ohio. Then the Hamilton Quarries in Marion, Ohio bought the shovel from them around 1941. In 1941, they tore the original wooden house off and replaced it with an all-metal house, and they also replaced the wooden boom with an all-welded boom that was made by the Osgood Company, also in Marion, Ohio. My name is Don France. I'm a National Director for the Historical Construction Equipment Association and a museum volunteer. This machine was donated to the HCEA in 1995 by the Hamilton brothers, and it was moved in November of 1995 to the museum here in Bowling Green, Ohio. Restoration didn't begin until the following year in 1996, when we first took the metal house off and started to disassemble the machine completely. The upper works was removed from the lower works, and all the deck machinery was removed, and everything was sandblasted and scraped and cleaned and then primed and later painted. And as we went along, we had to repair all the components that needed repair. The restoration process continued on at different levels of activity. The big holdups typically were related to the electric restoration, which was very unique.
As we tore into it, tore it apart, and I started rebuilding electrical, there was a lot of things that had to be rebuilt, and of course something this old, you know, there wasn't readily available parts. My background is electrical. I'm an electrical contractor by trade. We have a little family-owned business, and my love's always been mechanics, and about 4 years ago, the question was put to me from Don France was, look at that electrically and see what you think of it. And I had no idea at the time that it was even an electric shovel. Its appearance, as you can see, looks a lot like the steam shovel. My hobby is trains. We have a train museum in Findlay, Ohio. And as I got to looking through this, I found out that it was basically derived from train technology. All of the electric motors and the electric controls and so forth in it are streetcar technology, which was cutting edge technology at the beginning of the 20th century. So there's 3 large electric motors in this. They were sent to a motor shop and inspected. One of them, I think, had a Babbitt bearing that was out of it, and some of the other members here poured new Babbitt bearings in that motor, as well as some of the other mechanical parts inside the shovel. New leads had to be put on the motors. The machine was completely rewired. The old type of wiring back in them days, the state-of-the-art wire was copper wire with a rubber insulation over it and then woven with cloth on the outside. Well, this spent most of its life in a stone quarry. Stone dust would migrate down into all that cloth insulation on there, and wire was completely deteriorated. There wasn't any of it that was reusable. So it was completely rewired. All the controllers were rebuilt. The contacts were built up with silver solder and all reshaped.
The last big hurdle was to replace the house. And we have some volunteers, the Lavery family, that have a custom millwork business in Portage, Ohio. And they volunteered to donate the lumber, and hardware, and all the labor to reconstruct this house for this Marion. Since we did not have a wooden house on it when we received the donation, they had to reconstruct the house using photos from the HCA archives. And just figuring out how the doors worked, the height of the walls, the length of the walls, the thickness of the wood, the framework, all the structure inside. And they pretty much solved all the problems they went along, even the curved doors in the back. They had to roll all the metal reinforcing plates and straps to make the doors in the back. And the sliding door on the side is actually a trifold door attached to a sliding door, which was very complicated. And then the offside from the operator is a bifold door that swings around. And they did a magnificent job. It is really true to all the photos, and it would be hard to tell apart from a brand new house. Unfortunately, since the boom went on right at the end of the restoration, we did not know the condition of the components of the boom until we actually put it on, which was just 2 weeks before the convention. And it wasn't until then that we discovered how badly worn the boom is. The shipper shaft for the crowd and all the shivs. So all that has to be restored yet, but we'll do that later on. In the weeks leading up to the show, everything was kind of a mad rush to make everything come together all at the same time that we were making preparations for the show. And it wasn't until the Wednesday night before the convention started that we walked it out to the field here and dug for the first time. And it was quite a thrill because up to that point we wasn't sure what to expect. And everything worked perfectly. and we're all well pleased with all our labors.
The power that it does run by is two sources actually. It's a 480 volt three-phase AC current, which as we are operating it now runs off of a generator set. And at this point you will see where the 480 volt three-phase cord actually enters the machine here. This cord is actually clamped on here and is pulled with the machine as it goes forward. When the machine was turned or backed up, there had to be some ground personnel here to actually pull this cord back so it didn't get run over and damaged. That power is taken into the machine and is run on an AC motor, 40 horsepower. Now, once that motor was up to speed, you can see here that it is coupled to the generator. This is the generator unit. Puts out 250 volts DC. And the reason that the DC current was used was its ability to control its speed as well as its direction instantaneously. The machine, as a machine like this is operating, you know, you have a cable drum running in and out, you have the swing left and right. Numerous things are taking place as the operator operates it, you know, just like you would a steam engine. So the DC control at that time was the ideal application for this. That power is taken out of there and two wires now as a positive and negative. Those wires go down through a conduit, come across to this fuse block assembly here. Now each one of the three electric motors, each one has its own fuse to protect it by. The hoist motor being the largest, will be the largest fuse. Then you have the crowd and the swing. The two motors that do all the work here is the hoist motor and the crowd motor. And so they are protected by what they call a protective circuit control assembly, which you see here. Now you'll probably notice this looks a lot different than state of the art today. But you got to remember in early 1900s, electricity was something that was fairly new to us. There was a lot of maintenance involved, so everything's out in the open, so it's very easy to get to, so that adjustments could be made on these controls. But you'll also notice that out in the open like this, it's very easy. Now the electricity is not on at this point, but it'd be very easy to touch any of this stuff, which are all live parts. So when a person was in here and this machine was running, you usually kept your hands away from all this equipment. This air compressor would have been on the bottom of like an interurban streetcar, which would have supplied the power for the air brakes at that time. What this does is this compresses air and stores it up in a receiver tank. And this is what supplies the air pressure to do numerous things around on the machine. There's an air cylinder here, which is an air-powered cylinder, which actually dumps the bucket, operates the trip on the bucket. Also operates air brake release on the DC motor for the crowd. And then inside the machine itself here, there is an air-powered clutch, which is buried down amongst this gearing here, which actually is what applies the power to the cable drum from the rotating shafting and so forth that comes off of the main hoist motor. Every time the control is operated either in up or down mode, that air clutch is activated, which engages the cable drum, which will actually pull the cable and lift the bucket.
This shovel has the same three controls that all shovels do, and that is swing, crowd, and hoist. And the swing is on the left-hand side, the crowd is in the center, and the hoist is on the right. The hoist is the only friction, has the only friction apparatus, and that is a friction brake. And there's a pedal here on the floor to operate the brake. And that brake is set electrically when you want to travel the machine, or boom up and boom down. The crowd is power in and out both, and it was the most difficult thing for several of us that had a little bit of experience running shovels to learn how to operate. You don't use gravity to bring the dipper back to make your next pass. You had to learn how to power it back and get it into position and start your cycle again.
Electricity was brought into the picture basically in the early 1900s for its minimal cost of operation. Electricity was 1-2 cents a kilowatt hour years ago due to the fact they were generating a lot of electricity by coal at that time. And another thing, the electric shovel was probably good for. At the turn of the century, a lot of these towns were just starting to mature. City water and sewers were not in place. So when they come into a neighborhood to start digging a trench down the middle of the street, if you can imagine on Monday, which was always known as wash day, having your white clothes hang out on the line and a steam shovel running right next door to it. So the electric was basically quiet and definitely clean, other than the dust it riled up when it was operating.